Hello everyone, this is Rupesh Sinha from Wishworks. I have been working on MuleSoft technologies for last 4 years. Today I'm going to present a use case for MuleSoft Certified Architect exam. Let us first start with the business problem. I'm working for a client called ABC, who is a UK-based luxury mobile manufacturing company that manufactures high-quality luxury smartphones and the mobile accessories. ABC company also provides a 24/7 dedicated concierge service that offers worldwide assistance, recommendation, and priority bookings personalized to the owner. Their phones are currently sold in various stores across many countries. They are planning to launch an e-commerce website to promote and sell their phones and accessories online and make it available worldwide. They are also planning to provide a subset of their website's functionality using a mobile app. Key to their ongoing evaluation, ABC company wants to build an integration solution to address the need of unlocking some of their internal data for the use of their website and mobile devices via APIs, and also accepting orders coming from various sources and store and process them through their internal systems. The company is also transitioning to follow agile practices where there will be multiple Scrum teams focusing on their individual projects and deliveries. Let's take a look at the current landscape of ABC Enterprise. Currently, they have several ePOS systems in the stores, which has their own backend databases. There are point-to-point connectivity with their legacy CRM system and the ERP system. There is a centralized database which synchronizes data from ePOS on batch basis. We have proposed them to use a MuleSoft Anypoint platform for their integration solution. The MuleSoft Anypoint platform supports API-led connectivity approach, and it also supports a complete API lifecycle management. At the heart of Anypoint platform, we have Mule Runtime, which is responsible for execution of the whole platform. We have Anypoint Design Center, which consists of Anypoint Studio, API Designer, and Connector Dev Kit. Anypoint Studio is basically an Eclipse-based IDE, which is used for implementation of the services. API Designer is a web-based tool that allows creation of an API contract, also mocking and testing features. There is a Connector Dev Kit available, which can be used by the developers to build their own connectors. There are a lot of connectors already available in the Anypoint platform out of the box. And in case you have any legacy system or you're connecting to a target system which doesn't have a connector available, then Anypoint platform allows you to build a connector for that particular system, which can be used by other developers. We have Anypoint Management Center, which consists of Runtime Manager, API Manager, and Analytics, so that it basically allows you to manage your runtime, which is your Mule runtime. Also a gateway where you can set policies, SLAs, and other stuff. It also gives you basic analytic features where you can see your API consumption. Maybe based on demographic, you can also plan to scale your API and all other kind of API management stuff. You have Anypoint Exchange, which is basically used for collaboration purposes. So there are two kinds of exchange. One is the public exchange and one is the private exchange. So public exchange is managed by MuleSoft. So where you have a lot of connectors, examples, templates, and these kind of things available for you to consume. You can also have your internal assets or internal examples, connectors, and other stuff published in your private exchange that can be used by your partners or developers in the other teams. So they don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. They can just utilize the existing assets from the exchange. One of the example could be, for example, you have a component, a module that can be used for audit functionality. So rather than other teams having to build the same functionality from scratch, they can simply take that module or component from their private exchange and plug it into their application and start using that. You also have the portal, Anypoint portal on the top, where which allows you to develop documentation for your API and also engage with your customers. So that allows you to engage with the customers with the help of API portals. Then you have the platform services on the bottom that actually helps in availability, scalability of the platform. Now, the solution architecture that we have proposed here is using MuleSoft Anypoint platform at the center of the company to kind of allow integration for all the enterprise systems and all the applications. First of all, they are planning to migrate from their legacy CRM system to Salesforce. They're also migrating from their legacy ERP system to SAP. They already have a lot of EPOS stores available across the world, and now they're trying to build an e-commerce website and also a mobile app. They've also partnered with Postcode Anywhere to allow them to validate an address. This will be basically used by the e-commerce and the mobile platform. So this is the integration architecture that we are proposing for ABC Enterprise. If you see in the bottom, there is a system API layer, and this system API layer is basically an abstraction layer. So this kind of abstracts or unlocks your system of record as a reusable component that can be used by other APIs. Then you have a process API layer, which is actually responsible for orchestration. And then you have an experience API layer that's actually the service, the API that the consumers will consume. So in this example, if you see, there is a requirement that we need to have two flavors of create sales order service, one that works based on XML and one that works based on JSON. The XML-based create sales order service is going to be consumed by the EPOS application, and the create sales order JSON service will be used by e-commerce and mobile platform. Now, if you see in this diagram, there are two experience APIs for the sales order, but both of those APIs are calling the same process API called create sales order. So this becomes a reusable API within the enterprise, and the same API can be consumed from multiple experience APIs. This create sales order process API internally has an orchestration where it calls two create sales order system APIs, one that connects to SAP and the other one that connects to Salesforce. So the idea here is to create the sales order into SAP and at the same time link that sales order to a customer profile in Salesforce. Now we also have a get order status JSON service, which will basically pull information from Salesforce. So Salesforce will maintain the status of the order, and as and when user requires a status update from, let's say, e-commerce or mobile, they will simply consume internally the get order status JSON service, which will give them the current status of the order. We also have a validate address JSON service, which is again consumed by e-commerce and mobile application. There is no process API layer for this because we are going to consume postcode anywhere API. What we have done here is we are proposing to build an abstraction on top of postcode anywhere service. So we will have an address lookup service on the system API layer. And this system API will be consumed directly from Experience API layer. So this gives you an overview where you probably don't need to have a process API layer for all your Experience API. You can consume a system API directly from Experience API, provided your system API internally consumes a RESTful API, or in case you don't need a process API or orchestration for your Experience API. Now, an important thing to note here is, if you see on the right-hand side, the idea here is that all the bottom system, your system of records, are actually governed and maintained by central IT. The central IT is considered to be a slow-moving IT. So in case you have a new business requirement, if you rely on central IT, it takes time to deliver that requirement. Whereas in this case, as our use case is, we are aiming to have an e-commerce website and a mobile application as soon as possible. So the line of business itself can start working with the e-commerce platform provider or the company or the vendor who is currently working on the e-commerce website and also the mobile apps. So they can engage with them directly. They can build an API, an Experience API, collaborate with the developers or the architects of the e-commerce team or the mobile team, and give them an API that they need to start working on. So this MuleSoft platform, the Anypoint platform, allows you to have a mocking service through which the consumer can start consuming the service even if that service is actually not implemented. So you can work in parallel. You can give them an Experience API so that they can start working on their implementation, and you can work with your central IT team to create all your system APIs, process API, and then start plugging them in and kind of provide them the actual implementation of the service. Now moving on to the deployment architecture. Our client, ABC Enterprises, wanted to have a fully on-premise deployment. For that, we have proposed that they should have an API gateway on DMZ, and any Experience API will be deployed onto the API gateway, which will be exposed to the outside world on the internet. So ePOS or e-commerce or mobile app will be communicating to the internal system by calling the Experience APIs exposed via API gateway. There will be a lot of policies in place on the API gateway layer to ensure security. So we also have a custom policy that will allow auditing the request messages into a database. There are policies around username password authentication or IP whitelisting, many other policies. So this API gateway layer will be used to kind of authenticate the user and ensure that only valid users are able to consume the API. Now, underneath it, we will have a Mule runtime inside the organization infrastructure. The Mule runtime will actually host all the process API and the system APIs. The Mule runtime services will internally connect to the backend system, such as SAP or Salesforce or Postcode Anywhere. Now, from the HANDR perspective, we have proposed an active-active configuration. So there will be a cluster to ensure high availability. And also, we will have an active-active DR mechanism where traffic are intended for a failed node is either passed on to an existing node or load balanced across the remaining nodes. So this kind of architecture or approach provides enhanced reliability, better load balancing, and scalability. Now let's talk about the deployment approach. There could be multiple ways you can have your deployment planning. The first approach could be project-led approach, where focus is given on project delivery and not the overall deployment and everything else. In this approach, you might meet your project timelines, but over the time, as you're not focusing on the platform or the deployment strategies, your project delivery cycle will eventually become very slow. The second approach is platform-led approach, where focus is given on the platform, such as probably creating a canonical data model as a traditional SOA approach, which actually impacts the delivery timelines and often becomes a bottleneck for business to deliver the change. So our proposal is to use a balanced deployment approach, where we will ensure that we focus on the platform, we leverage the platform, but we also make sure that project is delivered on time. Now, how this is possible? So, the MuleSoft C4E allows us to basically, C4E is a new operating model in the industry, which is quite different from COE, which is Center of Excellence. So C4E talks in terms of API-led approach. So it enables a company to use API-led approach to fulfill their connectivity needs. It's definitely not Center of Excellence, because Center of Excellence often becomes a bottleneck where business quite depends on the central IT to do everything for them, which exceeds the timeline of the projects or often impacts the business ability to deliver the change. So the primary focus of the Center for Enablement is to enable the project delivery teams to leverage the platform and work in a faster, more agile, and scalable manner, but making sure that they focus on the reuse of the components or the company assets. It is a way of working to drive multi-model, multi-speed integration. So this C4E model basically is a hub and spoke organizational model, where Center for Enablement is the hub and projects are spokes, both running on the same platform. The projects can be scaled with local approaches and methodologies using common platform and frameworks. For example, as we spoke about, you can have an audit component built by one team, which is published for reuse, and the other teams can simply make use of those components rather than building them from scratch. It also allows business enablement teams, such as integration architects, to provide the integration tissue. It's central and federated development, which focuses on refactoring and harvesting. Now, what activities you can perform with the C4E? So C4E allows you to do technology platform. So basically provide the platform to deliver an API-led approach, application and license management, and central product roadmap influences. It also allows you to govern, where you can have automated governance as much as possible. You coordinate, collaborate with business and leadership information security risks. Then we have the enablement and evangelization, where people evangelize APIs in the community, coordinate training and certification, thought leadership, and feature function awareness. We have service ownership, where provision of the necessary tools, analysis, and process to allow effective ownership and continuous improvement. There is monitoring capability built in to provide a single view of all API and their utilization, their parameter, and their adoption across the business. There is productization, where the best practices, how-to guidelines on how to design documents and brand APIs, manage the central marketplace, store and discover, consume API service. All these sort of things are actually managed. Let's look at the scope for C4E. What is the scope for C4E? So C4E actually allows you to be prepared to experiment, fail fast, and then learn from the feedback. It doesn't tell you build something that doesn't fail. So what it tells you, build something that may fail, but if it fails, then you learn faster. It also allows team to own products over taking order. So you basically become the owner of the product rather than just somebody coming and telling you, give me this. So it's a kind of shift from the mindset. Then it allows you to be a strategic advisor to the business and not just a servant to the business. It allows you to own the features, set and prioritize the roadmap for the company. It allows you to focus more on the what and why than the when, take an outside-in approach. It allows you to focus on customers, trains, NPS adoption of the platform. It ensures direct involvement and input of customers, the business, in initiatives. It allows you to understand the business as well as the user experience for C4E customers. The C4E team is evaluated on the success and adoption of the platform itself. It's important to understand the difference between a COE or C4E to understand how really C4E benefits a company over COE. So let's take a look at some of those aspects here. So the main goal of COE pattern is reliability. So focus is given more on reliability, building something that can be a long-lasting thing and a reliable thing. Whereas the goal for C4E is agility. So you may build something which is a minimum viable product, but there is a refactoring bit involved. So you deliver that product first so that business starts to deliver something to their consumers, customers, but over time, refactor it. So don't just build and leave. You cannot build something that will be there forever. So you have to be ready for the change, for the refactoring, for the failure. Then the approach for COE is basically a waterfall or V model type, which is quite like a legacy SOA approach. whereas C4E talks in terms of Agile, Kanban, MVP. The governance in COE is continuous and process-based, whereas C4E is plan-driven or approach-based governance. The cycle time, delivery time in COE is often a longer, you can say in months or years, because a lot of planning and pre-project work is required in the COE model. Whereas in C4E, it's short term, so you can deliver a change or a functionality to business in days or weeks. In COE, the sourcing is normally the enterprise suppliers, and it's often the long-term deals. Whereas in C4E, the sourcing is enterprise and niche, but responsive short-term deals, not the long-term deals. The culture in COE is IT-centric, removed from the customer. So it's basically how IT wants to drive a company. Whereas in C4E, the culture is business-centric, so business drives the change. As I said, you might fail, but you learn faster when you fail. The talent in COE is good at traditional projects. For C4E, talent is good at new and uncertain projects. So there are different use cases around where you can use COE and where you can use C4E. My client, as I said in the beginning, is now transitioning from a traditional way of doing IT into the agile practices, where they will have different Scrum teams. So the C4E model helps ABC Enterprise to enable them to leverage the Anypoint platform as a single platform for solving all their integration needs. It also helps them do the rapid development because using the tools like Exchange, they're able to share their code, examples, connectors, best practices, and other stuffs. It allows them to engage with their consumers, such as the e-commerce platform building team or the mobile app developers, to start working on their development even before the actual implementation of the API is in place. So it's kind of top-down approach of implementation. It also allows them to document while doing the implementation. So there are tools like API Notebook that can be used to document an API. It also enables a business to be able to focus more on their customers and deliver the change in a faster manner compared to the traditional way IT used to work. That's all. Thank you.